Well, Jeff, we have a good honor today to have Mr. Danny Vaughn from Tyketto today. Check that out.
Yep.
So this was definitely your hookup. You just told me he was like one of the first guys you reached out to when we started this podcast, and which is great, Danny, because you agreed to come on this podcast when it was just a itty baby. So we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Absolutely. I'm happy to talk music. It doesn't really matter where or how.
Yeah. Well, clearly, because you're in Spain right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. That does.
Yeah. Let's talk music across the world.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. Well, this podcast is mainly dedicated to Memphis musicians. And one of the reasons I reached out to you is because there is a Memphis connection there that we will talk about as we go through this. But you are obviously not a Memphis musician. You have taken the Rhythm Section podcast global, and we love that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, because a Memphis musician is that's a pretty strong title. As there are some awesome players come out of that area. So yeah, I can't claim to be one of those, but have been there, have recorded there. So,
so you say you've recorded here? Was that at Ardent, maybe?
It was.
Okay. Awesome. We've had a lot of guests that have had that experience.
Yeah, it's legendary. Still here, still operating.
So you
let me know when you want those stories. I got a few.
Oh yeah. Well, you do a solo career as well, but most people are going to know you, I think, from being the lead singer and main songwriter for Tyketto.
Yeah.
And that project, if you want to talk about that to start and its origins and how it came about.
Origins. Okay. Older I get, the further back it is. First of all, you kind of got to backtrack to when I was in a British band, Wasted, which was fronted by Pete Way and Paul Chapman of UFO.
Yep.
And after I came off of that, I kind of, I'd literally gone from being in a band that was playing an entire set of Iron Maiden songs in clubs to opening up for Iron Maiden.
Wow.
So it was a whirlwind, and I kind of made my bones, and I had a good rep, and I got home and just waited for the phone to ring, to join the next big band after Wasted fell apart. And phone didn't ring much. And when it did, the things that came my way didn't really work out. So eventually, I kind of realized I had to kick something into my own, and that just that worked because I had done I'd done a demo. I was home after, I'm sorry, this is going to be a bit of a name dropping session.
That's fine.
I was home after one of the Wasted tours, and I got a call from one of my oldest friends and next door neighbor, James Lomenzo, who at the moment is currently the bass player with Megadeth.
All right.
But at that time and he was in a young band called White Lion that was coming up, but hadn't released their big album yet. And he said, "Listen," he says, "this drummer friend of mine in Staten Island, he's doing an audition demo for Whitesnake because they were looking for a drummer." And he said, "We've had I'm trying to remember. They had one of the guitar players, I think, was from Overkill."
These are some big names. This is name dropping. This is the kind of name dropping I like to hear. Yeah.
This was Brooklyn local, we're all veterans of a club called L'Amour that at one time was, Iron Maiden would play there after they played Madison Square Garden, Accept would play there, Kiss would play there.
Okay.
And this was a club in the middle of a really rough area of Brooklyn, which I happened to live in that area. So I was a regular. James Lomenzo lived 2 blocks away. So we didn't even know each other, but we'd be the only long-haired kids in the neighborhood looking at each other like, who's that fucking guy? And eventually we became really good friends. And so he'd played with Bobby Rondinelli's band and done a few different things. And then the White Line thing started to happen. And that, of course, was fostered through the people at L'Amour. They ended up being both White Lions and Tyketto's manager.
Okay.
And Memphis connection, Eric Gales.
Okay.
They managed him.
Mhm.
Yep.
So anyway, whirlwind, back to the story. So this drummer he knows is doing a drum demo for Whitesnake and guitar players from Overkill, and the singer they had wasn't really working out. They were doing a Cheap Trick cover, and Michael was just overplaying the drums all through it. And he said, "But you could probably knock it out, you know." And so I came down, and it was on top of the world. And so mind you, at that time, I'm actually the biggest guy in the room as far as rock star wise, if you want to call it that.
Right.
White Line hadn't taken off yet. I'm just coming off of a world tour. The drummer I've never met before. And I listen to the track and I go in and I blast out the song because I know it. And come back in the control room. I'm feeling pretty happy about myself. And the drummer says, "Man, that was a great take, man. That's so good. That's great. I think you could do it better, though." Say, "What? Who are you? What?" And we've been friends ever since. I loved him for that and his enthusiasm. That, of course, is Michael Clayton Arbini, who was the first guy I called when I decided it was time to start a new band on my own. That's a long way around to answer your question.
No, that's a great answer because that's a great story. And being a drummer myself, Michael is somebody I've followed ever since I learned about Tyketto, and I love his playing. And he's a really big part of the reason why I became such a fan of the band. So,
and you can always appreciate that straightforwardness. I'm assuming he wasn't trying to be rude; he was just being straight up with you, and I'm sure that
you can appreciate it if your ego is equipped to. Yes,
right.
Sure.
But it also, I think there's not everyone is for sure.
Right.
Yeah. But if you understand where that's coming from, and to me, that can also add some respect. So it's not surprising that you guys became friends from that moment forward.
Right.
Well, it's also the add-on to that is from that point on, any recording I ever did for Tyketto, Michael was in the booth.
Yeah.
And the producer or the engineer would be like, "Yeah, okay, that I really like that. Thought it was a good take, Michael." It's like I'd wait. He knew more of what I was capable of than I did for many, many years.
Awesome. And then, of course, the other members of Tyketto were Brooke St. James.
And Jimmy Kennedy.
Yep. So how did they come to be in the band?
Jimmy had been playing in a cover band with Michael. Okay, here we go. Name dropping again.
Absolutely.
Bring it on, man.
All right, so you guys might not have been aware of this, but in the early 80s, the New York, New Jersey, Long Island club scene was unbelievable. I mean, there were bands coming into clubs with lighting rigs that would match, arena bands. It was crazy. It's not the same band you would know, but there was a band called White Tiger that I remember, and they all looked like Punky Meadows from Angel. Every one of them, the hair was down to their knees. They never wore shirts, and they just had a billion lights. And man, these guys put on a show. Rat Race Choir. There were just so many. And Michael was in a band called Dreamer, and their guitar player was somebody named Vito Bratta.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly. And these in the 80s, kids, if you were in a cover band, you had to be good because if you're a guitar player, you had to cover Michael Schenker and Neil Schon and Judas Priest and Iron Maiden. I mean, you had to cover Gary Moore. You had to cover the best guitar players on the planet.
Right.
And it was generally true. I mean, American musicians took their cover work very seriously. And so, yeah, Vito was one of those guys that we all heard about. And it was like, I think I said that like when Van Halen 1 came out, Vito was playing Eruption about a week later. It's like he worked it all out when everybody else didn't even know if that was a guitar.
Yeah, well, knowing that guy's talent level, it may have been quicker than that. So.
Yeah, he was fast. So Mike was playing with him. I was playing in a band called Allied Forces, and we were all kind of making our bones doing that. And Michael also played in another band called Playmate, which is really kind of a, pop cheesecake, hair metal kind of group. And Jimmy was the bass player in that. So that's where he knew Jimmy from. And with Brooke, it was a matter of we were actually casting, out across the states, talking to different people, who do you know, who's out there, who's great, who's going to be the next. And eventually somebody said, you want to check out this guy up in Wisconsin. And, we got a demo from Brooke and it was great. And so we brought him in. With Jimmy, it was kind of, we checked out a bunch of different bass players. And then finally Mike was like, look, I've been playing with Jimmy for like a year already, let's just get him in,
sure.
And not waste so much time looking further afield. So, he was kind of right under our noses the whole time. In fact, I think he was coming down and helping us write our songs and rehearse without being in the band. He just, loved playing with Michael, and we all got along.
So do you guys still have the original lineup together now?
Oh, no. We've gone in and out of that a couple of times as like reunions and such, but both Jimmy and Brooke, opted to just want to be closer to home.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is that Tyketto is an underground band. It's wonderful that we're known as much as we are, and people will mention our names amongst all our contemporaries, like, the Wingers and the Skid Rows and the Danger Dangers and the Mr. Bigs. But we didn't sell anywhere near the amount of records those guys did. We just had an incredibly solid reputation. The band never put on a bad show, and people knew that and remembered it.
Sort of like the players, right?
Yeah. We were just top level live band. It was like got bang for your buck when you went to one of our shows, and people always remember that. It's why we still have an audience in the UK and Europe.
Yeah,
because people are just like, I've never been disappointed, and that's the name of the game, really.
Well, I know that your first album, Don't Come Easy, that came out in 91. And it had to have been 91-ish, 92, right in that area, that I was introduced to you guys at a little club in Memphis called Night Moves.
We got stories about that too.
That is where I saw you guys play. A friend of mine invited me to that show, and I was a fan ever since. So if you got a story you'd like to share about Night Moves in Memphis,
our core audience would love that.
Right?
I tell you what, that is still in my diary. That one. First of all, it was just a great show in general. We loved the club, and it was actually the last show of that current run of the U.S. tour.
Okay.
So, final show, everybody's in party mode anyway. And there was just an unbelievable wealth of Southern girls at that show. Just lovely Southern girls, and a couple of them kind of made themselves well known to me and Michael. So anyway, we're afterwards.
We're off to a great start.
We're partying a little bit, but we gotta leave about 1 a.m. because the bus is heading back to New York to take us home. And Michael and I are having a particularly good time. Honest to God, my memory is not faulty on this. These girls were like Playboy material. This is like you don't run away from this if you don't have to, basically. And we were having a good time. So it's like 1 o'clock. Our tour manager starts rounding us up, and I'm looking at Mike. He's looking at me and like, we ain't going. What? And I said, we ain't getting on the bus. We're staying here. What are you going to do? I don't know. I got a credit card. I'll find a red and whatever I got to do. And so our tour manager goes running off. We are so screwed. He's definitely calling our managers right now. We're in so much trouble. And I'll never forget, he comes running back at us like, stop. I'm like, come on, man, Bob, what are you going to do? And he just shoves a handful of rubbers into both of our hands. Like, be safe, and goes running off.
Nice.
So we spent the evening at an unnamed hotel not far from Night Moves, really just having an amazing time.
Jeff,
with two lovely young ladies.
To put in my mind, to get perspective, what part of Memphis was this place in?
Night Moves was at Mendenhall in Winchester.
Okay. Yeah.
which back at this time was not a terrible area.
Yeah.
Danny, you wouldn't go there now and do what you're talking about.
Yeah, what a shame.
Yeah.
Well, we had a wonderful time, and the morning came, and it was time to go. And we were like, all right, well, what are we going to do? Well, we'll get a cab to the airport. Days when you could do this, and we'll find a flight heading to either one of the 3 New York airports. How can we lose? And we get in a cab, and there was an elderly black gentleman in the cab. We're like, to the airport, please. He goes, where are you guys going? I said, well, we're going to try and get a flight to New York today. He goes, son, he goes, it's Labor Day weekend. We're like, oh, no. We hadn't even thought of that. We did manage to get a flight home. I'm surprised they let us on the plane because we were just so absurdly hungover and looked at, but we did make it home. But honestly, Michael and I must talk about that about once a month.
That's awesome.
Hilarious.
That's great that you have that kind of a great memory of this area of playing here.
Of all the clubs I've heard you talk about, like Rascals and all these clubs that were legendary, Stage Stop, that are no longer here, I've never heard Night Moves.
Yeah. It was another one.
Just another one that was great for...
There were a few like through the Carolinas. I couldn't name some names on you, but it was all the same thing. It was like every band was like, oh yeah, you got to go play there. Up where we were, it was Hammerjacks in Baltimore was one, Lemoore the other. These were all just below, heading towards theaters and arenas with these places.
Yeah. I don't know if you're aware of this, but another band from back in that era played Night Moves. Alice in Chains had also played there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, lots of bands came through here and played that place, and Rascals and some others.
That's great. Well, I definitely want to bring up your tour in May, but since we're talking about America, do you have any plans to play in the States again?
We don't. The Monsters of Rock cruise is on, and we're doing that at the end of April. But honestly, it's just so right now, touring in general for bands anywhere below a Springsteen level is in dire jeopardy.
Yeah.
The cost of everything is up, as everyone knows. And, I've got a UK and European run for Tyketto right after the Monsters of Rock cruise. And we're really keeping our fingers crossed that we can break even because, gasoline prices are up. Airline tickets are way up. There's all kinds of new problems getting in between the UK and Europe because of Brexit. And of course, when governments don't know what to do, they make up rules and charge money. And that's what's going on.
Wow.
So,
yeah, man, that's tough.
America's difficult. People ask me every day, like, why aren't you playing here? Why aren't you playing there? And it's frustrating because with America's such a big place. Like, you can do a UK tour. Yeah. It's not a big place. You can, we're doing 12 cities. You can't do 12 cities in America without covering thousands of miles. And what do you do with all that mileage in between? Right. Buses cost a fortune.
Yeah.
It's just not, it's not financially feasible for a band at our level to tour the States, so we just kind of keep our fingers crossed that the occasional festival comes in. We did one a couple years back that was up in the Wisconsin area, and that gave us the chance to play a couple of shows in that area as well. And that's really what I got to look for as far as getting us there.
Yeah. Well, I hate to hear that because there's not a band on the planet that I would rather see right now and get a live show from. But maybe one day the stars will align and it'll work itself out, and you guys can come here. But
we got to get you on a European vacation.
There we go.
You would not get an argument from my wife on that one.
I've been to Austria twice. And it was so fun. It was so awesome. Such a history and beautiful. Yeah, I was in Vienna, and then the first one was I can't think of it. It was a smaller place, but we'd love to talk about your tour coming up in May and give you some publicity as much as we can. So tell us a little bit about how the tour came up and some of the European and UK spots you're playing.
Well, we're on the cusp of something new here. So after 33 years of being my best friend and my musical partner, Michael Arbini is also stepping down from the band, as is our guitar player, Chris Green. Again, and I'm really happy to say this, absolutely no drama involved. Just want to be home with their families. And when I converse with them, the drawbacks of that is, again, we're not at a level band where we go out for 3, 4, 5 months. We don't have that kind of pulling power.
Right.
So, but Michael was really only able to give us like 2 weeks out of the year. He's an extremely busy and successful booking agent in the tri-state area.
Yeah.
And so I turned to him, I said, look, it's almost not worth doing, because when you tour for about 2 weeks, 2 weeks is like the turning point to where you might start to make money. And, we're not talking buying Mercedes money. We're just talking about getting your bills paid while you're away from home money.
Yeah.
And I said, and we have to stop. We start getting momentum. We put out a new album, which we did, in 2018 with Reach.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're not able to get the word out there. And we talked for months about this. And he's just like, why don't you go on? And he said, I didn't even think of that. I've never considered Tyketto without Michael. And honestly, it's a test. I don't know if it's going to work.
Right.
But we have a kind of a familial thing here, because he's been replaced by Johnny D from Doro Pesch's band and my original drummer in Wasted. So,
yeah,
that circle comes around. And our new guitar player is a guy named Harry Scott Elliott, who plays with Shez Kane. And we have been friends for a couple years now. And I think Chris really kind of gave him his blessing and said, yeah, I think this is the guy to step in my shoes. So we're taking a big shot here. And so the UK tour is 12 shows. It's a triple headliner with us, FM, and Dare, both of which are powerhouse, great live bands with great songs. So every band gets an hour each night. You're never going to know who's headlining, who's opening, who's in the middle. It's going to be swapped around depending on the venues.
Cool.
And when a band like these just get an hour set, they're going to be on all cylinders for the entire 6 minutes.
And coming from the musician's perspective, obviously all three of us, it's tough being on a stage for 2.5 hours, 3 hours. Knowing you just get an hour to punch everybody in the face is nice.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Yeah, you don't really have to hold back much, although you never know now. I'm 61, so I'm waiting to find out where the limitations are when I get back out there after 3 years.
Yeah. I wanted to give a big shout out to Chris Green, because without him, this interview probably wouldn't have happened. I reached out to him first because of our band. We had talked to him about doing some booking for us, and I knew that he was stepping down from Tyketto, and I sent him an email saying, hey, would you even consider doing an interview on a new podcast? And he said, well, man, I don't have a lot to talk about, but what if I put you in touch with Danny Vaughn? And I think my mouth at that point probably hit the floor. I couldn't believe he was even offering to do this for me. And I think my response was, hell yes, please.
Yeah.
And that's where this went. Then you and I emailed one another back and forth, and it happened. And again, I can't believe that you agreed to do this with a new podcast, and it's just awesome that you did, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah,
so.
Our audience will too.
Thank you. Hey, I'm happy to do it for sure. I've been getting into more of the podcast interviews anyway, and I think it's because of exactly what's happening here. Is it's other musicians talking music, and there's a little more depth. And how did the band get its name, and what's your favorite color? Which after a while,
yeah. And what I'm experiencing as a producer, because for a long time, any podcast I was hosting was all virtual, all over Zoom. Well, now I got a studio, so we can do things locally. So we got Memphis, right? What a place to have a podcast about music, and that's what really helped this thing grow. So, and I can speak for Jeff. We have an awesome core audience that's just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm sure it's exciting for them to hear your stories here, so, and for context, Mr. Jeff here has been the Pitbull booker for this podcast. And I mean, literally, I think we were 2 episodes in, and I get a text. He's like, I got Danny Vaughn. So, so that's awesome. So I'm gonna just change the topic a little bit here. So as I was doing a little research, Danny, I came across your Instagram bio, and I want to read it because it's hilarious.
Flashing back in my mind here, like, okay, what have I done to myself now?
Singer of some small renown, tilter at windmills, lover of life and music, and peanut butter.
Yeah, okay, that still holds. That still holds.
So, what is, when you say some small renown, what does that mean?
Well, people, it's like I'll meet people. Sometimes, wait a minute, you're famous? I'm like, ish. And my way of describing it is probably like in every major city where there's music, people know my name, but probably only about 5 people per city, maybe 10, depending.
How do you think Memphis will be, Jeff?
Well, just from the Night Move show, I think there's probably a lot of people around my age that know exactly who he is and who Tyketto is. I know that I sent you a picture. I emailed you a photo of Ken Houston that he took with you, and I think it was Brooke maybe at Night Moves that night. And you emailed me back and said, yeah, I've seen that picture before. So I think Ken had sent it to you before. But,
yeah, I think he had. Yeah.
And we've got that photograph. As a matter of fact, that will be on this episode when it airs. We're going to have a few different pictures that we'll stick up to show who you are and who the band was and the Memphis connection.
So should we talk about solo career?
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's give some shine on that, Danny. So tell us a little bit about your solo career and how it got started.
Well, it's kind of hit or miss. Trying to think. I guess the first solo stuff I did a couple of projects for Frontiers Records that was called From the Inside, and I think that was the first thing I did stepping out on my own, and it intrigued me because at that time they basically proposed, we have a bunch of songs that we think you would sound great singing on. We'll put the players together, et cetera, et cetera. And I really liked most of the material. I got to contribute some songs as well. But there was a couple of songs. There was an Amanda Marshall song, and I thought that would be a challenge. It's called Beautiful Goodbye, and it's just such a singer's song. There was a song that had been like one of the winners in Eurovision that year. Not everything was fantastic, but it was all pretty good. And I'd never tried singing anybody's material, at least recording anybody's material but my own. So that was kind of a fun challenge. And that's sort of where it started.
What year are we talking? What year is this around?
That's a good question. And I'm not
putting you right on the spot.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to say...
We're talking 90s? 90s, 2000s?
Somewhere, yeah. I'm thinking 2000. My first solo album came out in 2000.
Okay, there you
go. I had I'd left music for 5 years. I was just, when you watch the thing you love the most slowly dying, I kind of bowed out of Tyketto. The guys and I didn't talk for a while because they were really disappointed in me leaving. But I was just like, I can't keep doing this. I can't walk into a club and play to 30 people. Maybe it's my ego. I don't know. I said, but I don't want to watch this die. And it was,
Yeah.
I mean, people talk about it all the time about, many of us, bringing up some of our old friends again, the Wingers and the Dangers. I mean, our careers turned on a dime.
Yep.
And it was the success of the Nevermind album. Yep. And people blame that form of music. I don't. The audience chose it.
Yeah.
And in many ways, quite rightfully, they just had, it's unfortunately, what the record industry never seems to understand is you can have too much of a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when something's working, and let's say, okay, they got Guns N' Roses. That happened in 87, I want to say, I think, when they signed them, something like that. And when that started to take off, every band in LA that looked like they shot heroin and wore headscarves all over the place got a record deal.
Yeah.
Everyone, no matter how good, no matter how bad.
Yeah.
And it ruins that because, unfortunately, particularly in America, music does also turn on fashion.
It waters it down too.
Yeah, it ruins that. Exactly. It ruins that genre. So what happened to bands like us is we all got lumped in with people just seeing too many videos of Whitesnake's girlfriends humping their cars and guys in matching leather studded outfits slinging their guitars around their backs and catching them. I mean, it was great the first 200 times, you know, but after that it became laughable. Everybody just kind of went, oh boy, got good looking guys with hair out.
Yeah.
You know, out. Give me this rough and ready guy in my grandfather's cardigan. That looks more like me.
And flannel, yeah.
Yeah, I relate to that.
So
fair enough. Yeah, the audience chose it, and I don't blame them.
So Jeff and I are several years apart, about 7 years apart. So I can't speak on the behalf of an entire generation, but I was 13, 14 years old when Nevermind hit. So I was at that right age. So I was up to that point. Def Leppard Hysteria was my go-to. That's the album I listened to the most. And I was into Motley Crue and I was into that 80s stuff. But by the time Nevermind hit, that was at my most formidable, you know, like I was the one that got impacted where Jeff, you were 21.
Right.
Big difference. So, and from my perspective, the 80s music towards the end there just was so watered down. I can speak for other 13-year-olds. We're turned off by it a little bit, you know? Right. So when that new thing came, that's why it just popped and exploded. And it's just that next generation reached that certain age, a new thing that sounded great came out, and there was nothing you could do about it.
Yeah. It's funny. I remember we recorded the first Tyketto album. The bed tracks were all recorded at A&M Studios in Hollywood. An unbelievable studio, massive place. If you ever saw the We Are the World video, Michael Jackson and all those singers and everything like that, that's the room we recorded in. That's the A room.
Okay.
It's massive. And as happens during some downtime, the engineers were talking about other projects they just had in there. And let me play you this thing. You know, this is something we just did. It's it's going to be big. And I hated it from the second it came on. It was the Stone Temple Pilots album. And I think I hated it because I could hear the footsteps.
Yeah.
First of all, I was just turned off by the vocal style at the time. I was like, that's not singing. You know, well, that's going back here, the Eddie Vedder, that was all those guys. But you couldn't deny the guitar riffs, you couldn't deny the music. And there was part of me that, same thing with Nirvana. I was like, at the time, I was like, I fucking hate this. This is garbage. Of course it isn't. It's great.
Yeah.
But it was also my death knell, and I heard it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I get that for sure. STP is one of my top bands. I love STP.
Yeah.
Scott Weiland, great. And what was great about Scott Weiland is he changed his voice over the records. There was very sort of David Bowie-esque, where he always tried to reinvent his voice. It was really good,
I know that Tyketto has also put out some live recordings, DVDs, Blu-rays, which is awesome because you're able to keep my generation of music alive in that way.
Tyketto.com, may I throw in?
Yeah, absolutely.
All of your links are going to be in the description, Danny. All of it. Everything. Yep.
But those videos are available still?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of which one. The kind of documentary that we did about ourselves, Documentally Yours, that we still have that.
Okay.
And when we did the series of kind of not exactly unplugged shows, but the songs got all torn apart, rethought. A lot of the classic stuff we did with some horn players as well. We added on horn players and string section and backing vocalists, and kind of just for fun had a couple of nights where we recorded. It was like dinner, and then we'd play, and then we'd do a couple of takes to see how to get the right take and all that. That's called We Got Tomorrow, We've Got Tonight. And I'm actually really, really proud of that one. Not all the diehard Tyketto fans like it because they don't want to hear the songs reimagined.
Sure.
But
Gotcha.
it was fun to do. It was exciting. It was also the hardest work I've ever done because I was kind of musical director on the project. So if anybody watches it, I'll apologize now. I don't think I smile once. And it's just because my mind is just thinking about 100 different things going on all around me at the time, trying to make it all work.
Yeah, I can relate with that.
Right.
For sure. So while we're talking about songs that kind of went outside, the spectrum of what your audience is used to, I'd like to talk about your country career, Danny. When I was flipping through the YouTube channel, I just randomly clicked a song that was on the homepage, and I landed on a song called "The Shadow of King John," and that is straight up country, train beat, picking. I was like, "This is a country band," and Jeff's like, "No." Like, that is not what they normally do, but it sounded great. Like, it was like really good country. So tell us about that.
It's really more of like a traditional Irish pub song, which is what it's meant to be.
And I did say it had that Irish tone to it, but still the train beat and the picking and everything, man, it sounded really good.
Okay, so that comes from my most recent solo album, which is called Myths, Legends, and Lies. That project, so there's 13 songs on that album, and they were written all at various times in my life, some of which there's a song on there called The Missouri Kid. That's the first song I ever wrote on my own. So it's 40 years old. And then there's the song I wrote about my mother's dying, which happened right before I went in the studio. I wrote it about 2 weeks before we went in the studio. So it spans all of that. And I just refer to that album as it's an album of orphans. It's all songs that I've written in the course of my life that I knew weren't Tyketto songs. They weren't even solo songs as far as, they're not rock songs. They're all different kinds of things. And I just would have them in the back, keep them in my book and just think, what am I going to do with these? I don't know if anybody's ever going to want to hear them, but suddenly there was enough of them to put them all under one roof and just let the fans decide. If it's the important thing is if it's good music, not if it's rock music or what it is,
Sure.
And so the Shadow of King John was written about my time living in Limerick, Ireland. I lived there for 4 years after I first left the States. That's where I called home for a while. And it's just, I love Ireland to death. I love the people there. I love everything about Ireland except the weather.
Yeah.
And, and it was just all a collection of songs like that. They're very different. They're very personal. And they kind of jump from style to style with no real roadmap.
You mentioning Ireland, and of course, we mentioned at the beginning that you're living in Spain. What is music? What took you overseas? Is it because you wanted to continue to be able to tour and do those things, and it just wasn't supported enough in the States, or was there another reason you moved from the States to over there?
You got it in one, really. I wanted to keep having a career, and I'd already come over to the UK and Europe several times to support my first couple of solo albums, and I just flying to and from America alone, the expense involved was kind of like, this is getting silly. If I'm going to go there a couple of times a year, maybe I should just be there. And it wasn't, and I hate to say this, it wasn't a difficult decision for a number of reasons. I was living in Nashville at the time, and Nashville just didn't work for me. I had a real problem with it. A lot of my contemporaries have done wonderfully well there. Yep. Kip Weir lives there. Mark Slaughter lives there. Yep. Dan Huff runs the place. He's like the big producer in Nashville. I had trouble getting on with the good old boys network of musicians there. You really had to kiss a lot of royal rings just to get heard, and I hate to say this because it's very egotistical sounding, but I was watching guys around me. I'd go to some of these singer and songwriter nights. I'm watching guys and I'm thinking, this guy can just barely sing, seriously, yeah, and I'm having trouble getting work here. What's going on?
Turn on country radio. I could go. I don't want to hurt people's feelings here, but you can be.
It's the best. It's the best of both. And at that time, country was enormous. Garth Brooks. It was just like it was the biggest music in the world, which, as we've already discussed, attracts all the sharks. And therefore, you were getting guys, going into recording studios that had just arrived there the week before and literally could play about 3 chords. Yeah. But as long as they could say the word heart, they would be able to. They'd be able to get a deal, and you just be like, "Oh, this is gonna backfire like it always does eventually." But for now, we're gonna get saturated, but with a bunch of junk country, which is what you got. You got all this pop country that had nothing to do with anything Waylon Jennings or Chris Christopherson or Johnny Cash had any part in.
I spent 5 years in Nashville. Never been to Hollywood, so I don't know what it's like with the scene for actors and comedians. Doesn't take a rocket science to know that it's saturated and it's just, watered down, and it's just, you never know what's going on. Nashville has that vibe. Like, you can move to Nashville and instantly start working. I mean, it's good to get work if you want to get cover music, break into that scene. But everyone's a songwriter. Everyone. And like you said, if they know the core cowboy chords and can sing.
The Nashville joke is, how do you meet a songwriter in Nashville? Waiter.
Yeah. Well, you say that. What's hilarious is my first month in Nashville, I was a server at Applebee's. And at the time, my Yankee accent, I'm from Maine originally, and my Yankee accent was thick. So I always got the, where are you from? Where are you from? And then immediately followed up with that question is, why are you here? And it was always, I'm a bass player and I moved here for music, and I roll, and then they go back to their appetizer.
Yeah.
Well, we have to present the other side of the argument. The other side of the argument is, if you happen to walk through the right door at the right moment, the people you would meet, because of course Nashville is filled with the unsung heroes of music, like the players, they're there.
Yep.
So, for instance,
the Brent Masons of the world.
Yeah. One night I'm at Legends. You ever go to Legends?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. So people should get a view of this. Most of those clubs, the famous clubs in Nashville on Broadway and heading down that way, they're like little closets, little tunnels.
Yep.
They're
like Tootsie's. Tootsie's is the greatest example of that.
Right. And the bands play in the window, like a shop window, facing away from the street. So you see their backs of their heads. And the audience is in the tunnel after that. So that's how it's set up. So I was doing one of these things. I had a friend there, was the coolest guy I have ever met. His name was Woody Cochran, and he was a cowboy poet. And he was a non-vet. Nice. He had curly ass hair down to his butt. His wife was gorgeous and sang like Cher. He had that voice. And I remember he used to do a poem. He goes, "They're the itty bitty outlaw gang. Their guns are driving on and dragging on the ground." Just crazy shit he would do. So he and his wife were doing a set at Legends. And he said, "Hey, I'd met him. We'd done a couple of sessions together, and he really liked my voice. And he said, "Hey, why don't you come down and, play a couple of your songs, and we'll do a couple of ours and all that." I said, "Great. Let's do that." So we did that. It was fun. There were some people there, nothing to shout about, whatever. We finish, and Woody gets on the mic and says, "Y'all don't go away now, folks, because Billy Bob Jerry so-and-so is going to come up and play some guitar in a minute, and you don't want to miss that." All right, whatever. We go to the bar. And we're just hanging out, having a few beers, talking. And I'm just out of the corner of my eye, I'd seen this guy setting up. And he looked remarkably in that Charlie Daniels vein, enormous beard, cascading down an enormous tartan shirt covering an enormous belly with, a Les Paul way the hell out here, hat pulled as far down across his eye. Guys, this guy started playing guitar, and I just stopped. It was the best chicken picking I had ever heard. Yeah. There were 50 people in the place, and no one was paying attention.
Yeah.
And I'm watching. I turned to Woody. I said, "What the hell?"
It's because they're used to it. They're used to it. A lot of the locals in there.
He goes, "Oh, that's Merle's guitar player." Oh. So this guy had been with Merle Haggard for 30 years, and he just felt like coming down and playing for a while. And man,
wow!
So you had moments like that. There was also a place outside of the main area of Nashville. Did you ever get to a place called the Stations Inn?
No, not familiar.
That's where the musicians hang out.
What part of town was it? Were you familiar enough of Nashville to know?
Oh, it was not a part of town you wanted to go to without to and from taxi. I can tell you that. And you thought you were going to like an auto body shop. It's all like concrete breeze block and all that.
Nice.
But it's where the bluegrass players go to jam.
Mm-hmm.
If it's still there, I don't know. And man, I saw, again, didn't know any of these people. You get 9 people on stage, and you couldn't stop marveling at every single one of them. Yeah. Mandolins, double basses, guys doing shit on spoons you couldn't even imagine, So the talent is there, but get overshadowed by the pop industry.
Yeah. And the opportunities are there at all these bands that tore out of there. So I never discourage anyone. If you're in your mid-20s and you want to take that leap like I did, Nashville's the place to go. It's amazing. It's a playground. You're going to meet awesome people. The opportunity, especially now, there's probably 50 stages on Broadway now. I'm not even kidding. Triple deckers.
Yeah.
It's wild. And when they open up those windows like you're talking about, Danny, where you see the drummer's back, right? Well, all those places open up their windows, and when you walk down Broadway on a Friday night, it's chaos snare drum.
Yeah.
It's just snare drum hits everywhere that are just ringing through Broadway. It's
reflecting across the street.
So, and when I moved there in 2005, just before it really bursted, and it was comfortable. You can see great players. You can go on a Friday night at a Legends, at a Tootsie's, and enjoy yourself and be able to get a drink at the bar. Not the case anymore. It's like nightclub vibe, and forget about it. You're 10 deep from the bar if you want to drink. So, but it's interesting.
That particular side of it never interested me. It was always, like the what's the famous writers' night at the Bluebird? You know, you never know who might be in there. I think I saw Phoebe Snow one night, and it was just stunning.
And you never know who you're going to see before they blow up. I mean, Garth Brooks is a great example. That's where he went. And
I was in a club one night because I was actually working A&M for Lava Records for a while. So I was down there looking at bands. Well, that was one of the reasons I went there. And so I was checking out a band that I heard about, and I really liked them. And they suddenly said, we're really lucky to have a friend of ours come up, and he's going to jam with us a little bit tonight. Come on up, Vince. And Vince Gill gets up.
Oh, wow.
And up to that point, I had no idea what kind of a guitar player Vince Gill is.
I know. He's a picker, man.
And I was like, holy shit. It just boom. Of course, now everybody knows because he's in the Eagles. But, he's just more known as a country singer guy.
Right.
You have those encounters. I did a session with a guy. He had me come in and do some backing vocals, and he was being developed by, I believe it's John Briggs. I'm not sure about the first name. Briggs is definitely the surname. Now, that name in Nashville circles is a heavyweight. John Briggs was one of the original members of the Jordanaires.
Okay.
So that was Elvis's backing vocal group, and John was responsible for the keyboard and vocal arrangements, and actually is responsible for the development of the Nashville numbers system, if you've ever heard of that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I live on it. Even
they developed it for the Jordanaires because the Jordanaires were so busy. They were doing 4 and 5 sessions a day, and they didn't have time to learn the songs. And it'd be like, all right, it's just a 1, 4, 5 in B, and off they go. So I got to do this session with him at his studio, which was right on, I can't remember that, Music Row, where all the big old antebellum houses are and all that sort of thing. So we get up into his studio. It's a beautiful place, and it's a proper old house.
Yeah, Music Row is awesome. Music Row is amazing. Yeah,
that's gorgeous. I'm up on the second floor, And it's this gorgeous A-frame, all wood and brick floor and all this sort of stuff. And so I'm out there, I'm on the mic, we're doing some stuff. And I'm standing on a carpet, but I notice that beneath my feet, right where the carpet ends, there's a cutout on the floor. And I realize I'm standing on a trap door. So laughingly, I turned to, I said, Mr. Briggs, I said, is this here in case I suck? And he just starts cracking up and he goes, no, he goes, that's Elvis's entrance.
Oh, wow.
Are you serious?
Standing, what? When Elvis used to come to his house, he couldn't come in the front door.
Yeah.
You know, there were people everywhere. So he would get the driver to go around the back. He'd come in the back and come up through the studio trap door.
That's crazy. And yeah, I get
Great
it.
story.
Yeah. You know, you lose your anonymity. It's over with. You know, for sure.
Yeah. Nashville's full of stuff like that, too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know that you guys are getting ready to do the Monsters of Rock cruise.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. Derek and I would love to have been on that this year, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I hope you guys play it the following year because I fully intend for us to be on the Monsters of Rock cruise in 2 years.
I can confirm I'm not going to be there this year.
Yeah.
You said I think we're not.
Not going to happen.
Yeah.
So
that's a big commitment.
But yeah, good luck with that, man. That's going to be awesome. And for anybody that's listening, if you haven't had a chance to see Tyketto live and you want to go on a cruise, this is the one.
Yeah. Awesome.
It's an amazing experience. I mean, it's like 40 rock and roll bands, 3,000 to 4,000 fans, 5 different stages, beach parties. They really do it up. The first one we went on, just everything about a cruise makes my skin crawl. I have no interest. I'm like, oh my God, really? 2 days in, I was like, I never want to go home.
Yeah. It's a lot
I was
of
having
fun.
so much fun. And it's a good vibe because most of us, the musicians, we understand that we're there to be available to the fans. It's like,
right.
I don't see these people any other time of the year, like we already talked about. I can't tour the States. And people are coming from all over the place, from Brazil and Peru and Czechoslovakia and you name it, they've come in. But this one's going to be a bit bittersweet because it's the last shows for Mike Arbini and Chris Green.
Right.
They do these two and that's it. And I'm literally, as soon as we're on shore, I'm flying home and I start rehearsals with the new lineup.
Wow.
Nice.
Well, you'll run into some of our Memphis brothers on that cruise. The guys from Tora Tora, I think, are going to be there.
Oh yeah, I'm so looking forward. Anthony is one of the nicest people in the world, and I see that he and Tony Harnell are doing a lot of stuff.
Yep.
Solo acoustic in the States, which I do, and I really want to start getting into the States with it.
Cool.
So I would love to do some stuff with Anthony.
Yeah, we just interviewed their drummer, John Patterson. His episode hasn't dropped yet. I think it drops next Monday. And then we've got another Memphis connection. You've mentioned Winger a couple of times. Their guitar player, one of their guitar players, John Roth. He is from here.
Yeah.
So
he's outstanding.
Yep.
What a great guitarist. I actually saw him play with Starship as well.
Yep.
And he was brilliant in that too.
Yeah, he's an amazing guy and just a super nice guy as well.
We'll get him in here.
Yeah.
I have faith.
You still want to hear about Arden Studios though? You still got time?
Yeah, let's do an Arden story.
Do it.
Let's do an Arden story and then
So Arden's still there, right?
Oh yeah, it's still here.
Okay. So I can't remember the name of the guy we were doing. Basically, Tyketto was there because there had been a lot of record company interest in our live shows. We were good friends with Skid Row, who had given us a couple of great opening slots. And so we got a lot of attention. And our managers, who were also managing Tora Tora, come to think of it, they said, we got a demo. You've got a good collection of songs now, Forever Young, Standing Alone. There were actually 1 or 2 that didn't make the record. But it's like, we need to get these demoed so we can start hitting record companies up. So they decided to send us to Arden, and I think it was because, their connection with Tora Tora and Eric Gales, who they were also handling. And I can't remember the gentleman's name that was at the controls, but he had definitely done some stuff with ZZ Top. So, we were in good hands. And it was really our first time ever recording together, not counting our little home demos and away from home. Okay. So just the story that goes with that is there's a song on the second Tyketto album called "Why Do You Cry," which is a very blues song. It's on the Strength in Numbers album.
Okay.
I wrote that song in Memphis because I don't remember where we were staying, but I'm gonna think it was a Red Roof Inn or something of that nature. It was like a motor lodge, you know, where you got the second floor and the outside terrace with all the doors on it, and everybody just steps out of their door, and you're right next to looking over the railings at the parking lot.
Yeah.
So it's a Sunday morning. It's summertime. I'm in the midst of living my dream. I'm recording my music for the first time in a big studio, and we've had a good session the first day. I think we had tickets for Graceland that day or things like that. So it was all like, this is all happening, you know? It's about 9 a.m, and I step out onto this little communal terrace, you know, cigarette butts and old beer cans and all that sort of shit. And I'm in mid stretch. My arms are up in the air, and I look down in the parking lot, 9 a.m. Sunday morning, and this guy's cleaning his gun on the hood of his car.
Welcome to Memphis, man.
As I stepped back into my hotel room very quickly, my mind just like, what the fuck mission is this guy on right now? What's happening that he needs a gun at 9 a.m. on a Sunday morning? And Why Do You Cry was written right there.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well, welcome to Memphis.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a gun around here, man.
Yeah.
So how did the recording session end? Like, what was the whole, did you walk out of there with a positive experience?
Absolutely. We got 5 songs demoed. And of course, that was the demo that was circulated that got us all the attention. Like I said, Forever Young was on it. Wings was on it. Standing Alone was on it. Yeah. There were a couple other songs that didn't end up making the album that were on it. Mm-hmm. But again, we were just so thrilled. And it was the opportunity to meet Eric, who at the time was 16. You know, I mean, I'm so glad. You know, see, he's up for a Grammy, and I was like, man, it took him long enough, but
yeah,
but what an absolute talent! Loved him, loved his brother. You know, their drummer. That first Eric Ailes band album, I just listened to it again the other day. I was like, that's just some fierce guitar playing on that record, and he was 16. You know.
Yeah.
Well, Don't Come Easy and Strength in Numbers, if those had been cassette tapes, I would have completely worn them out. But fortunately, they were CDs, so they have survived the test of time.
And if you want to hear country Tyketto, check out The Shadow of King John.
Irish country.
Irish country, right. Well, Danny, we could talk for hours here, you know, and I wish we could.
Yeah.
But look, again, thanks for being here. We're not going to say goodbye quite yet. Me and Jeff are going to talk to the audience here real quick, and then we'll say our goodbye.
And we always tell people that this is not a one and done thing. If you want to come back and do this again after your tour overseas this year, tell us all about that. And the Monsters of Rock Cruise, you are more than welcome to come back.
So socials, Jeff,
YouTube, Facebook, just like we just said, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple. Check us out there. We love it for you to go to YouTube because we do have that monetized, and that helps us pay the bills.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of people are grabbing links from the channel and posting that on Facebook.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great. Share our clips that are embedded and upload it into Facebook too, like you all do. That's great too. But yeah, whenever you share a link from the YouTube channel, that's helping the reach on that, and that really helps the cause. So, and as far as our published schedule, every Monday, 6 p.m. Central, on YouTube and Facebook, we put the full episode video on Facebook. And then if you're an audio-only type of person, Apple, Spotify, it will be ready for you when you wake up Monday morning.
Yep.
I put it out there in the middle of the night, and it'll be there waiting for you. You can find all of these platforms in our Linktree link. In the description, you'll see a link that's called Linktree. Click it. It will take you to another browser with everything you need. Every place that we live, you'll find there. Also, Patreon. We've been getting a lot of good patrons lately. It's been awesome. We try to thank everyone as they come in. But as a reminder, if you'd like to support the show, click our Patreon link. Subscribe to our tip jar. $1 a month, $12 a year, if you can afford that, or that would be awesome. And then, and of course, SRP Studios. If anyone out there is interested in starting a podcast, sign up for that free consultation on my website, shelbyroadproductions.com, and we'll get it done for you. So awesome. Thanks again, Danny. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, man. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Yes, and we did too. And Jeff, man, I hope you have a good day. And, I didn't hate you today. This is good.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Nah, just kidding.
That's Derek.
No, we love each other. That's Jeff.
We'll see you.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, guys.